Hello and welcome to the Real Estate Regroup Show. I'm here today to give you some real estate news that you can use. For those of you particularly who are interested in being either homeowners or real estate investors. What has appeared down the pipe recently, CNN showed some footage of P. Diddy basically stomping out Cassie. Okay, I wasn't even aware that people didn't even believe her when she spoke earlier, but now the proof is definitely in the pudding, or in this case, it's in the video, right? And this video they actually found at P. Diddy's house. So, a lot of questions came up and also on Clubhouse. So I wanted to address some of those questions and then go a little bit further on the real estate aspect of this thing here, okay? So the hotel footage, the way P. Diddy had it, it is alleged that P. Diddy paid the hotel $50,000 for it. Okay, so that's how he has it. What's strange to me is that he kept it and didn't try to destroy it. That's what doesn't necessarily make any sense. Okay, so one of the questions or one of the issues that people question is, isn't the hotel responsible? This particular incident happened in 2016, yes. So the statute of limitations probably has passed. Okay, but the question still remains, if the time didn't pass, would the hotel still be responsible for what happened? So, just so you know, this happened at the InterContinental Hotel, Century City, Los Angeles, California. At the time, right now, that hotel is no longer operating. It closed its doors in 2021. I am not sure if the company that held that hotel is still in business, because they may still be in business. Maybe they own other properties, or maybe they're doing something else. If they are still in business, then guess what? Cassie may have a case against the company that owned the hotel. Okay, here's what some other information that I got was that Cassie was leaving the hotel when P. Diddy beat her up. Okay, but then she came back. The hotel security staff did urge her to go back in the cab and go back to her apartment. Okay, but she didn't do it, right? So here's the thing. Some may say, or they may think, well, wasn't security looking out for her? No. They were, yes, but, and again, no, because if they did sell the footage to Diddy, and I believe they did, I mean, how is it that he would have the footage? Why is it that they no longer have it? And how did they know that she was getting beat up unless they actually saw the footage themselves? You understand me? So they knew what was happening. They saw what was happening. All right. What hotels are supposed to do when they see an incident like that occurring, they are supposed to immediately call the police. Even if the guest does not report that there's a crime, especially since it was caught on their security camera. Okay? So that's number one. Because, see, there's something called premises liability. If a guest, even if the guest is related to the guest that is beating them up, the hotel is actually still liable. that guest can sue the hotel. That guest can sue the company that owns the hotel. Okay. So yes, hotels can be found liable for any harm done on their property to a guest, no matter what the relationship is, whether the guest is sitting in another room, or even if the guest is in the same room. Okay. And I'm not sure if many of you are aware, since P. Diddy is also being accused of sex trafficking, many of the hotels that he has stayed at will also be reviewed for that as well. Because one of the things that was in Cassie's case is she did accuse him of sex trafficking. Right? So, and in the past, other hotels, like I said, many of them have been sued. Most of them did not win. Most of them actually settled. So they are aware. There was one particular case, I'm going a little bit off track, but there's one particular case in Massachusetts where a woman was sex trafficked. She says that the cleaning people saw her tied up to the bed and didn't do anything. Okay, because some of you probably would have been like, well, how can they know? No, there are signs. They can tell. They can ask questions, and they can definitely call the police if there's any suspicion, right? There are some hotels who have stepped up their game, and unfortunately, there are some hotels who have not. So as a person like myself who is an avid traveler, one of the things that I'm going to start looking into now is any cases that are brought up against any of the hotels that I decide to stay at. Because sometimes I travel alone and sometimes I travel with others. Okay? So this is a very serious thing that affects the hotel industry. Is not just part of real estate, it's also part of the travel industry. When you do hotels, you're doing, when you own a hotel, yes, the hotel is real estate, but it's also hospitality. Okay? And part of hospitality is to protect your guests, all guests. Okay? Now, sometimes things, you may say, well, okay, how was the hotel to know that Diddy was like that? Maybe it was the first time Diddy was there, and maybe they never saw anything like that before. Here's the situation. It only takes one time for them to look to say, okay, this is not appropriate. We need to call the police. So, no, in this particular case, it wasn't necessarily preventable, because that's one of the questions that normally come up when they're in court. This was not necessarily preventable as far as when it first occurred, they probably didn't know, right? But then when it happened again, or while it was occurring, because they didn't take appropriate action at that particular point, then I would say that they are liable. Then I would even go so far to say people need to also look at not just the hotel, but who was in charge of security. Because sometimes security, I know in some places like where I work, right? Security is not hired by my company. Security is hired by the building owners, and the building owners don't choose the security guards themselves. They actually hire a company that hires the security guards. That's how that works. So I don't know if the hotel, at that particular point, we know that they're no longer in business. However, the security guard, was the security guard hired directly by the hotel, or was the security team a company that was contracted to work there? If it was a contracted company and that company still exists, then Cassie can go after that security company as well, because they did not take the proper protocol to do what they were supposed to do in order to protect her. Okay, because it's not like they didn't know. The mere fact that they told her to turn around and go back is proof that they had seen what had happened on camera. And even to allow her back on the premises without informing the police, that alone, that's also wrong as well. Okay, so yeah, this matter was definitely not handled right by the hotel. It was definitely not handled right by the security team. Okay, they should have a plan in place, because let's be honest, I'm going to tell the truth on this now. What P. Diddy did to Cassie, I know that he's not the only one that's done it. Domestic violence is unfortunately somewhat common. So people who own property know that this is something that they need to have a plan in place. If you're a landlord, this could happen to you. I mentioned that in another video, where you can have a tenant and the tenants are involved in a domestic violence situation. It happened to my friend, as a matter of fact, and I talked about that in that video, but I don't want to get off track. So anyway, that is my thought on that, as the facts are being presented. Okay, the next thing that many people want to think about, or many people may fall into, is the whole Airbnb platform, because you have a lot of people who don't even stay in hotels. They want to stay in somebody's home. Why? Because sometimes Airbnbs are cheaper, not always. Sometimes Airbnbs also, a lot of times, they have the kitchen, right? So people want to stay in a place where there's a kitchen. The other thing is, people might be moving. So people want to stay in an Airbnb to see whether or not they like an area, a neighborhood, or what have you. So then the case comes to, well, what if they were staying in an Airbnb as opposed to staying in a hotel? Here's how this would go. Airbnb, if a guest is physically harmed on their property, then that homeowner, who should have insurance, by the way, and also host protection insurance if the owner is the host, that will take care of whatever bad behavior. But that homeowner or that host, because you do have some hosts that don't own the property. There are people who don't own property. They call it arbitrage, right? But anyway, that host or that homeowner should then turn around and they should report the guest's behavior on the site, and they should also call Airbnb. Now, if the host or the homeowner calls Airbnb and Airbnb doesn't do anything, then the platform itself is liable, because the host already reported threats of violence involving the person that was booking the rental. Okay, so Airbnb has to take action. All right, but otherwise the guests, they have to sue the host or they have to sue the homeowner. And sometimes if it's two different people, they can sue both of them. All right, that's why I'm not too crazy about the whole arbitrage situation. And that's why some homeowners and some landlords now, they're against having arbitrage in their building. I think it might even be illegal in some states as well. Not the whole Airbnb platform, even though it is, but just doing arbitrage in somebody's building in some areas is illegal. Okay, but basically, yes, the host, you should, especially if you don't live in that building, because that's another thing too. You have a lot of Airbnb people who own buildings, but they don't live in that building. So they don't know if a guest is being hurt, but the cleaners might know. So if you are an Airbnb host, you do need to inform or tell your cleaners, or the property manager, however you run your facility, you need to inform them, hey, if you see somebody being abused on the property, if something is off or whatever, call the cops, report it to me so that I can turn around and report it to Airbnb, and document everything, what the person wore, what they look like, were they chained and tied up to the bed, were they chained and tied up to anything, did they have any bruises or marks anywhere on their body. You want to document all of that to protect yourself. And then, of course, you want to report it to the Airbnb platform, and you may want to call the police as well, so that this way you're covered and everything hopefully will be copacetic. All right, so guys, that's all I wanted to share with you. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments. And of course, yes, consult an attorney. I am not one, but this is just information that I'm quite aware of. As I told you, I'm a landlord, and I also have a short-term rental as well. Now, I live on the property, so it's a little bit easier for me, right? But I know that there are some people that they don't live on their property, and they have to depend on others to give them information. And listen, when you don't live on your property, one little tidbit, when you don't live on your property, even if you have cleaners, even if you have a property manager, it's still good to make friends with the people next door, especially if the people next door own their property, because they may be able to see something, and they may be able to corroborate with whatever it is that your cleaners saw. Okay? So guys, yes, that's all I have for you. Hopefully, this information will help you make smart financial moves. Feel free to pass this amongst your friends. Remember, each one, reach one, teach one. Bye for now. Until next time, have a good night.